For those of you who have been following the boards, following QAnon on 8chan, following the Anons, following this wonderful parallel view, not only of news, but of this wonderful world view, which I cannot commend to you any stronger. This perception of news, this not alternative, but really the truth, dare I say? Can I go that far as say the truth? Anyway, that was my plug for QAnon. There's been a lot of talk about the Internet Bill of Rights. And it's a wonderful concept. Now remember a couple of things here. This is very, very important, very, very critical. And this goes to show you not only this issue in particular, but how to look at things in general. Number one, believe nothing. Believe not me, believe not anyone. Always take it in, listen, say thank you very much, and then verify. I hate to bring up Reagan, but, trust, but verify. That's number one. And I know this may sound self-serving, but I ask you, please, I know what I'm talking about. Verify it. You'll appreciate what I'm saying even more. You'll appreciate me even more if you say, that son of a gun's right. So please do that. Number one, trust nobody. Question everybody, question authority, question. Listen. Be courteous. Thank you very much. And then move on. Number two, Lionel's Law, one of many. The better the name of the legislation, the better the name of the cause, the better the name of the proposal. No Child Left Behind, Affordable Care Act, Patriot Act, whatever. The better the sound, net neutrality, sounds great. The more you should fear. The worst legislation, the most draconian, the most limiting, the most constitutionally regressive are always given the best names. Legislation today is the Tide Pods of our time. Tide Pods look like candy. They look, they're I'm surprised it took this long for people to start eating them. And who knew people would eat them and prefer them? But anyway, they're the Tide Pods. They're colorful, they're inviting, and they're dangerous. Dangerous. Now, when you hear net neutrality, but also Internet Bill of Rights, be very, very careful. So look at what's going on now. But let me get to the gravamen of this particular indictment. But first, this is the prefatory, this is the proem, the prolegomenon, this is the introduction, okay? Good. That notwithstanding, the biggest problem that we have as a society has nothing to do with legislation, nothing to do with any kind of Lionel merch available on demand. Christmas is just around the corner. Makes a great stocking stuffer, and yes, fine for dad or grad. We're talking more about this idea of the Internet Bill of Rights. A lot of concomitant issues about channels being shut, people being excluded, people being shut down, people being throttled, shadow banned. You probably have felt or seen this in one way or another. You might, people I know on Facebook, and yes, people still use Facebook. Facebook, I know it's very hip to say, that's stupid. I don't use Facebook. I'm a cool cat from Brooklyn. I think, well, that's great. But they do use Facebook, and they like Facebook, and they care for Facebook. And you may not like this, but they do. Okay, fine. But give you an example. You may post something. Story that appears not in some whatever off the wall sources, but they may say this is against community standards. You say, whoa, wait a minute, I want to post this, or You post something, but nobody sees it. You're shadow banned. You're throttled. You're shelved. Your Twitter is like, why are my numbers going down? Why doesn't anybody see this? By the way, Twitter is the biggest phony thing in the world. I love people who all of a sudden go up 10,000 views in a couple of days. Right. Okay, fine. Whatever. But what do you do about that? Or there's an event that's catastrophic. An event that everybody's talking about. An event that's in the newspapers that is being perceived by mainstream media in one particular way. And then you come along and say something outlandish, ostensibly, such as, I don't believe that happened. Those are crisis actors. That's a false flag. That never happened. That traffic accident never happened. That recall never happened. That whatever. It's your opinion. Or you go back and you talk about some event, some form of genocide that never happened. It's the weirdest thing. Sometimes you're a revisionist and you're just shut down. If you say one particular historical calamity, some horror never occurred, you're done. You're finished. If you say that some gassing in Syria was not really exactly the way it was reported. But if you're Cenk Uygur and you have historical complaints or historical differences or whatever about Armenian genocide, that's okay. I don't know what revisionist story is okay and what's not. I don't understand when incredulity is accepted and when it's not. I don't know who's in and who's not. I don't know when you can question and when you can't. Who knows? But the ultimate question is, when these things happen, when you're some edge provider, as they're called, who shuts you down, who limits you, do you have a freedom of expression claim? Do you have what is referred to far too often, and apparently axiomatically and reflexively, as the First Amendment claim? We always talk about this, the Constitution. Oh, we love the Constitution. The First Amendment. Hey, that's freedom of expression. I have a right. I have a right. This is my First Amendment. Freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom. Constitution, the Constitution. I've got the Constitution. It's unconstitutional. The other one is that there should be a law against that. I love that one. There should be a law against that. Well, I hate to break it to you, but for, I guess, 38 years, I've been involved in the legal biz. Practicing law for 35, but since I first cracked the book in con law, 38 years. And what never ceases to amaze me is how this is so limited. I mean, it's not what you think. It's important, but it's not. It's critical, but it's not exclusive. And sometimes if you want to just do something, well, just do it. You don't need the Constitution to back you up. The government can't tell you, hey, you can't buy that plasma TV. Do they even have plasma TV? Anyway, you can't buy that smart TV. You can't buy that. You can't wear that cologne. What? There's no constitutional right that says you have a right to cologne or TV. But there's nothing that says the government can limit what you're saying. Look at the Ninth Amendment. Just because it's not written doesn't mean you don't have a right to it. Okay, fine. Now, here's the point. Whenever you talk about the First Amendment, the First and the 14th, remember incorporation by reference, Barron against Baltimore, remember all that stuff? Look it up. But whenever you have a First Amendment right, there has to be the government, the state, city, county, federal government, some government telling you you can't say that. Governmental connection, governmental, to use the religious phrase from that case law, entanglement. There has to be a government as the transgressor. The one telling you you can't speak is the government. Now, remember, this is First Amendment. Now, that doesn't mean that there can be other limitations. There's for example, not to get too off the mark here, but everybody now wants to ban AR-15s. I love this. All of a sudden, I talked to a friend of mine yesterday, as a matter of fact. All of a sudden, she says, I don't see why there should be any reason for an AR-15. I said, but I don't see any reason why one should be able to buy those shoes you're wearing, those Louboutins or whatever you call. I don't see any reason why. I don't see a reason why you should have those shoes. And then he responded, yes, but there's a big difference. The AR-15 leaves a huge hole in you. I said, yes, because that's what it's intended to do. It's a weapon. I don't see any reason why these people driving about with their rice burners should be able to go 150 miles an hour on a motorcycle. Do you know what happens if you hit something? I don't see why and then we get into the I don't see why thing, which is, I don't even know what that means. I don't see reason for your existence, much less. But it's not up to me. Okay, whatever. Now, so what happens is in the AR-15, a lot of these states came along and they said, we're going to limit the ownership of AR-15s or whatever we consider to be an assault weapon. This week, we're going to limit it to people 21 and older. And people said, that is just... Now, is that a Second Amendment violation? Not necessarily. Is there any Second Amendment guarantee for assault weapons? No. Is there any Second Amendment guarantee that you can have an assault weapon? No. Can the Second Amendment ban an assault weapon? Maybe. Well, what good is the Second Amendment? That's my point. Heller, in these cases, when you read by before I get off the AR-15, you know what may be the biggest problem for states who decide to limit ownership to people 21 and older? State public accommodation statutes. State statutes will oftentimes have limitations where you cannot discriminate on age, sex, gender, religion. You can't automatically say you can't come in. For example, I think one of the most stupid things that people are doing is vaping. I think vaping and what's this new things, cooling and all this other kind of jazz. All right, now, should the government ban it? I don't think so, but I think it's stupid. Well, let's assume, for whatever it's worth, that I decide that I'm going to, on my own, say, I don't think people under the age of 21 should be able to buy vaping equipment or apparatuses and paraphernalia, whatever it is. And I decide to just put this ban up. Is there anything that says I can't do that? Not really. Is there any constitutional right to vape? Not really. But there's legislation that prohibits me from limiting public accommodations based upon age and sex and physical limitations and the like. So that plain old stupid legislation was more powerful than the Constitution. Legislation's a bitch. It will nail it. And if nobody overrules it, do you know that tomorrow if the state of Florida decides to allow infants to marry, let's assume Tallahassee decides to say 3 years old. 3 years is the minimum age of marriage. That's absurd. And they pass a legislation. allowing it. Is there anything unconstitutional about that? No, because this deals with what the government can do in terms of limiting you. It doesn't say, hey, you're a little too liberal in the application of the marriage statutes. Okay. So where am I going with this circuitous rambling? Where am I going? What is this man talking about with this desultory, discursive, all over the place? When it comes to the Bill of Rights, the Internet Bill of Rights, be very careful of, number one, the Bill of Rights. Be very careful of people who claim they do it. But here's the biggest problem, and this is the payoff. This is what I want to talk to you about. The biggest problem that we have in this country, in our beloved republic, in terms of accepting maybe the spirit of the First Amendment, the spirit of it, not necessarily the letter of it, but the spirit of expression and being able to say things that are problematic and scary. The problem that we have is the left. And I will call them the left when in fact they're not the left. They are the most radicalized, the most draconian fascists I've ever met in my life. They are the most horrible, rancid killers and destroyers of First Amendment expression than anything anybody could ever come up with on their best day. And that's a God's honest truth. Absolutely true. They are the worst. True. And they, along with this newfangled group of people, SJWs, social justice warriors, virtue signalers, Antifa, leftists, people walking around with the man bun and sleeve tats and the cloth bag and the Brooklyn barista named, Wyoming or whatever, some cool, sentient guy with a nose ring and the gal with a lip who feels and appreciates and is sentient towards, the notion of Black Lives Matter and LGBTQIAGGGMOPP ragmop and every conceivable crypto gender transmutational sexual predilection, any nuanced eroticism, whatever. They're the worst because they don't want internet freedom. They don't want it. The other night, I had a wonderful opportunity to speak at an event. It was a symposium of sorts, and I was shocked for a number of reasons, but shocked at people who are themselves, I thought, hip enough to understand that the only thing that allows us to even have this symposium is, of course, the First Amendment, but to expand, to wax philosophic about whatever it is this appreciation for expression. And then when somebody is racist, you ignore them. When somebody is crude, you ignore them. When somebody is horrible, you ignore them. Let me tell you something right now. You probably don't know this. I'm sure you do. Do you know that if you wanted to do virtually any kind of drug, any kind of illegal drug, crack, meth, wet, synth, whatever the hell you want, whatever that is, you can find it. You make a couple of phone calls, and I promise you'll find somebody. You know somebody who does drugs, and probably they'll know somebody, and you'll, believe me, you'll do it. And there's a law against drugs. You realize it, right? If you really, truly wanted to find in the dark web the most sexually horrible child, God forbid, pornography, you could find it. You could find it. You could, I'm sure, if you really looked, if you really, in this wonderful world that we exist right now, if you really wanted to, you could find it. I promise you. Other people are finding it. You would have to just be persistent. Now, that being said, do we shut down the internet because that's even possible? No. How do you coexist? How do you deal with this, knowing that there are people right now who are using this medium that we're on right now and are using it to involve themselves in the most horrible things? Remember when snuff films were the big deal? Well, not the big deal, but most of them, I knew a postal inspector years ago, he said, they're all phony. But anyway, people always talked about snuff films. Should you be able to see a snuff film? Should you be able to? Is that the question? Or should you prevent people from seeing a snuff film? Well, yeah. Well, define a snuff film. Well, it's a picture of, you're killing somebody and it's real. You mean like an execution? No, I don't mean execution. You mean like Nazi people being killed, or maybe Iran? You know how they hang people, or when we killed people in Nuremberg, or the execution of Paine and Surratt and all those people who conspired to kill Lincoln. You mean that? No. Well, you said that you shouldn't be able to see snuff films. Well, that's... So as you're seeing by virtue of my exercise here, to come up with the definition of what a snuff film is, I promise you, you can't do it. So the other night, when we were at this wonderful, it was very good, but it was fascinating. I said, here's what you should do. If you don't like what I'm saying, don't watch it. And the reason that the Bill of Rights and Internet Bill of Rights are people like George Soros, the great work of James O'Keefe and Project Veritas going into these and I would venture to say rogue operatives in edge provider services, Twitter, Facebook, Google, YouTube, whatever. People who are not necessarily following company orders, company directives, but are perhaps maybe on their own. Maybe they're rogue, maybe they're mavericks who've decided to go off the reservation. But more importantly, the problem is that there is a group of people, young people in particular, young at Berkeley and others, who want to shut you down. Whether it's Milo, whether it's Cernovich, whether it's Shapiro, whether it's Ann Coulter, whether it's Jordan Peterson. The thing we're hearing now, and by the way, you know and I know that nothing makes their ticket price rise, nothing makes their availability more precious, nothing works for them better and inures to their benefit better than to have somebody say you can't watch them, they're whatever it is. So I'm not suggesting they're actively doing it, but they're crying all the way to the bank, which is good because, frankly, remember the old days, Banned in Boston? You maybe don't remember that, but anyway. But it's these younger folks. It's not AT&T. It's not the providers. It's not even the big edge providers. It's the people who have this idea, who don't appreciate the fact that if I, and you can call this a slippery slope argument or whatever it is, but if I shut you down, I shut everybody down. And if you give me a definition that you are okay with, that allows me to terminate the speech, I'm going to use it against you. And finally, this is the big, listen carefully, forget everything I've said. If you're going to remember one thing, remember this one. The reason why the First Amendment does not apply technically to these people, edge providers and the like, and Twitter and YouTube and all this kind of stuff, is because they're not the government. They're not the United States is over here, the government's over here, and these people are over here. Silicon Valley's over here, and Washington and Albany and Tallahassee and Sacramento are over here. The two are disconnected. Never the twain shall meet. Google, Twitter, Facebook is not the government. Wrong. Wrong. They have been fed by the government, funded by the government, seed moneyed by the government. They're constantly working hand in hand. They are an agent, a silent partner. They are a proxy, a straw man, a straw buyer, whatever you want to call. They have provided, these people, these organizations have given the government and the deep state and the intel state and the police state and the shadow government and all of these folks entree into your world, into your privacy, into your home, into your bedroom, into your car, into your conversations through tapping into smartphones, tapping into devices where the microphone is on all the time, devices that you cannot turn off, GPS, location, thoughts, banking, friends, where do you go, how much do you spend, where are you, what do you read, what do you listen to, what do you agree with, what do you retweet, what do you not like, these devices that you are feeding in, biometrics, face, eyes, thumbprint, everything about you, everything, going to be blood samples next, who knows. We then put them into your devices from companies that were bought by, in essence, shadow bought, connected, owned by. It's like the mob who runs Vegas, or the mob ran the Teamsters or whatever it is. That connection, along with a series of terms of service and acceptance and renewals that you sign off on that you've never read, including the Telecommunications Act of 96, which is one of the most unbelievable pieces of legislation you've never read, which basically says here, I'm giving my information to these, to Twitter or Apple or Samsung or whoever the hell it is, and they have an agreement with their master, the government, and governments, federal, international, UN, Soros, whatever, and they have eliminated the requirement, the requisite, the necessity to get search warrants, wiretapping. So to suggest, this is my favorite, that Google or Facebook, that are run by these central casting characters, Mark Zuckerberg, you believe this story about how he's this kind of this wacky kid at Harvard who says, I want to have this thing where people in Harvard just kind of talk to each other, and next thing you know, there's the movie, and I'm a billionaire, and I'm a guy who wears T-shirts, and I'm a kind of a goofy guy, and yeah, right. Yeah, you're in charge of that? Yeah, just like Fat Tony was in charge of the Genovese family. He was the boss. Right. It was Chin. What are you talking about? Larry and Sergey. You think they run Google? Are you kidding me? Schmidt and others. This is a joke. The government's so, the deep state. So they get these central casting people, and they think I guess you buy it. They are the government. They are a utility. 90% of all news comes through their platform. When they shut you down, nobody gets news. That's the way it is. They are like the radio waves, the electricity. They're a utility. And what's interesting enough, I find this fascinating. Follow me on this one. One of the objections I have had with classic net neutrality, is that they want to consider and treat the internet as a utility. Under Title 2 of the, I forget, but there's a provision that says the internet will be a utility, and utilities can be licensed. Their content reviewed and renewed. It's like, wow, I don't know if I want to do that, because the idea of net neutrality is that the whole idea of the internet is this was the genie they got out of the bottle. This is the one that got away. So they, through DARPA, turned their head and it was gone. So they're trying to drag it and claw it back. But in a unique twist, and this is the ultimate irony, and I will end with this, it is that idea, that notion of the utility that will be our salvation. Because, follow me with this, these edge providers, these people, are in fact a utility. They're like the power company. They're Con Ed. They're PSE&G. They're whatever. They are it. They are the phone company. They're not just this private, quirky. They're not like McCall's Magazine or the West Side Spirit, the Shreveport Picayune, some little newspaper, some little platform, some little blog. No. They are the utility, and they are the government. And we will have to, through legislation and through courts, redefine, recalibrate, re-explain what the government is. More importantly, rephrase, the reach of the First Amendment. Therefore, in conclusion, in my valedictory, these providers will fall under and must fall under the First Amendment, whereas if you are denied, shut down, shut up, merely for expressing an idea that is not reasonably prohibited, because after all, everything has limitations. There is no such thing as I can say anything I want. You can in a field by yourself. You can't start screaming. You can't yell theater in a crowded fire. You can't wear anything you want. No shirts, no shoes, no service. You can't post pictures of animal sacrifice. I know that. We all kind of say, okay, whatever. That minimal entree level, wear a jacket kind of a deal. Okay. But if I want to post a story that says Obama was born in Switzerland, or that he's a Martian, or if I want to say that Trump is guilty of, mass murder, whatever it is, and it's an opinion. Of course, anything about Trump will be let on no matter what. But my point being, it may be wrong, it may not be accurate, it may be whatever it is, but it is free speech. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that you can only say things that are accurate, or things that are vetted, or things that are sourced, or things that are reviewed, or things that pass the editorial board. No. That's what I'm saying. That's what we need. And the people who are against it are not necessarily the government, but Soros-funded, lefty, close-minded, intolerant, SJW, virtue signaling, fascist, actual fascist, idea thieves and idea suppressors, today's, quote, left. Okay? Now, this has been a lot, but it is required, it is important that you understand the full story of things. Okay? You want to watch 3-minute videos? I don't do 3-minute videos. I'm sorry. There's nothing that I want to talk about that can be expressed in 3 minutes. It's not that important. If I can say it in 3 minutes, it's not worth thinking. Okay? Good. Now do me a favor. Please like the video. That helps. Please put your thoughts, comments, observations, witticisms, and analyses below. Also, if you could and you would, please brighten my northern sky, as Nick Drake says. Also, subscribe to this channel and hit that bell so you'll be notified of live streams and new videos. And comment, always, as you see fit. And I mean that. And I mean that. I really mean it. Comment as you see fit.